Hey everybody out there, this is Seto, and today for you guys we are going to be doing a really cool and awesome deck profile of my tour guide deck. Now, kind of interesting story how this came about. Around last year, when the voting came out for the next structure decks and people could vote on them, Tour Guide was actually one of the structure decks you could vote on. At the same time, me and a couple buddies were playing older formats. We were playing Dino Rabbit, Wind Up format, Burning Abyss format, where we had Shaddolls and Stellar Knights and Teller Knights and all this cool stuff. So we were playing all these older, metas, and we got to talking about how Tour Guide is kind of an interesting card because it's been meta since the day it came out, which was over 10 years ago, all the way to now, which is ridiculous. Not that many cards can say that in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially monster cards. That's very hard, especially main deck monster cards that are not hand traps. So it's kind of interesting to see how this card's been used off and on throughout Yu-Gi-Oh!'s history. But I decided to, at that point in time, start trying to work on a tour guide deck. Eventually, it combobulated into this deck that you see before you, but there's a couple things I want to mention to you guys before we get into the deck profile. Yes, it does use some of the BA strategy in this deck, I will say that, but it does not use the Phantom Knight engine. I decided to kind of use a little bit of the BA, some of the BA cards. It's not a BA deck by any means. It just uses them as a pseudo engine or just good targets, or just it helps Tour Guide out. And from building this deck, I kind of feel what Konami was going to do if they were going to make that structure deck. They were probably going to make it a link-based strategy along with maybe some new level 3 exceed strategies going with it, which would have been really awesome to see, and maybe in the future we will see that. But that's how this deck came about. Like I said, it does use different engines, but pretty much my friends dubbed this deck, just so you understand how it pretty much functions, as Tour Guide and Friends, because it's pretty much Tour Guide, which is going to be your boss monster, your main playmaker of the deck, and all her different friends that you're going to be using along for the tour bus. Now, it's going to be using a bunch of different ones, BAs, different level 3 monsters. So think of it as Tour Guide and Friends, or level 3 dot deck that can go for multiple level links and multiple level 3 exceeds. So think of it that in that strategy, but the nickname we call it is Tour Guide and Friends. So first off, we run 3 Tour Guide, OG card, one of the OG waifus, I guess you could say, in Yu-Gi-Oh! Nowadays, which is kind of weird to say because I remember the day she came out. But this card is awesome and really cool. It's going to help you precipitate a lot of your different plays in your deck, be it level 3 exceeds, be it link climbing, link plays, a bunch of different things she's going to be doing in this deck. But 3 Tour Guide in the deck, hands down. You're going to see a lot of cards that you wouldn't typically see in a Burning Abyss deck or something, this dot deck or that type of deck, because Tour Guide, like I said, is going to be your main playmaker of the deck, the main focus. That's something you need to keep in mind. Next, we run 1 Tour Bus from the Underworld. This is just a nice little card to have to help recycle things in Grave, which is nice. I do find that this is a great target, especially if you've gone through all your tour guides, or you've gone through 2 of your tour guides to recycle something if you're not able to recycle it through other means. Believe it or not, you will find yourself sometimes going Tour Guide turn 1, Tour Guide turn 2, Tour Guide turn 3. Fairly often. You'll go through your tour guides very quickly, so you want to recycle them in some way, shape, or form, and Tour Bus from the Underworld is just a nice tech as a one-of for that reason. It's also a great card to have as an exceed play fodder. Next, we run 3 Farfa of the Burning Abyss. Farfa is one of your staple kind of level 3 exceed, level 3 monsters in this deck that works very well. It's going to help you banish stuff. It can help you go into Dante. If you mill it off Dante, that's great. It's one of those type of cards that's great in the deck to have for its different abilities to get rid of things on the field. We also run, as the other Burning Abyss card, 2 Skarm. Now you may say, why are you not running multiple Skarm in the deck, Seto? I would think you would. I'm going to be honest, the ease of which this deck can pretty much get to your tour guide is fairly easy. And the 3rd Skarm was always dead. Because you were either recycling your tour guide multiple times that you had in Grave, or you had searched all of them out and your Skarm was dead. And you would think, wow, that sounds kind of contradictory. Like, really, that happened? I'm being honest. Until you play the deck, you'll start to see what I'm trying to say. You don't need a 3rd Skarm. If you want to, go right ahead. But for playtesting, I found that it wasn't necessary. But it's definitely something you could run as a 3 of. I just cut it for other cards I wanted to run in the deck. Just saying that. But you could run a 3rd Skarm. If you really want to, go right ahead. I'm not going to say that's probably the 46th card of the deck. And for ages, I was running it as a 3 of too. But I found that, hey, you really never use the 3rd Skarm. Next, we run 3 Kagameshi Knight. This is something from the Phantom Knight engine, quote unquote, I will say, but it's really nice in this deck. It is searchable through Rhoda, which is awesome. It can help facilitate other things in the deck, to go up into Link Climb, to use it for Exceed fodder. It's just a nice card to have. If it's dead, you can Allure of Darkness it away. So it has multiple utility uses in this deck, I feel like, be it Links, Exceeds, pitching it for Allure. It's multi-versatile, and it's easily searchable through Rhoda. So I like it as a 3 of in the deck. It works out pretty well, because, like I said, this is a level 3, MASH deck. Next, we run 2 Rhino Warrior. This is one of the ways you can send your Skarm from deck to grave, or any of your other cards, your Farfa as well, which is nice. But you only really need it as a 2 of in the deck, I find. 3 of is a little bit too much. But 2 Rhino Warrior, it's going to work well with your tour guide plays. You do go for it. I do find that myself sometimes going tour guide into Rhino Warrior if I don't have I know I don't have a play for next turn, because that's something you will have to do with this deck. You have to think a turn ahead. Okay, do I have a play for next turn? No? Okay, I need to go into this so that next turn I have this I can do with this, this, and this. So it's a thinking man's deck, which is rare in Yu-Gi-Oh! Nowadays, I feel like, to some degree. Next, we run 2 Junk Forward, another warrior target in the deck, which is nice. It can become dead. I know it's not a dark attribute, same thing with Rhino Warrior, but it is a level 3, which you can use to help facilitate into multiple Link climbing plays or Exceed plays, which is great. You go Junk Forward, Tour Guide, then negate your Tour Guide. Hey, guess what? You can still go into an Exceed or a Link. Okay, or maybe you have 3 cards out in the field. Oh, awesome sauce. Now I can go into this card, with a Link. So there's multiple things you can do with this deck, and you can play around with the extra deck. But Junk 4 is just a nice 2 of. 3 of is too clunky, though. This card we run as a 2 of. It's kind of a boss monster for the deck. 2 Blackluster Soldier Envoy at the beginning. You're going to notice there's not a lot of light attributes, but BLS can help push things in, put pressure on the board to press into your opponent. If I was to cut this out to down, I would keep it in the deck at least as a 1 of. But if 2 of, I really like as well, because you see it more often. But if you want to cut one of these out for Farfa, be my guest. I'm going to be honest. For Skarm or, excuse me, not Farfa. I misspoke. You cut one of these out for the 3rd Skarm if you want to, but that's up to you. You could also cut Farfa, this card out as well for the 3rd Skarm if you want to, and that's 1 Sangan. I had to run Sangan in this deck, guys. You guys know the love story between Tour Guide and Sangan. If you're an old OG player, you know how Sangan's a part of the tour bus for forever. So that's why I decided to run it. However, I will say, if I was to take this in a tournament, this most likely, not the BLS, would probably be the card I would cut for the 3rd Skarm. Just saying. But I have to run it because this is a tour bus deck, kind of. So it's Tour Guide and Friends. So if you're taking this competitively, yeah, cut that out for Skarm. Next, we run 3 Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler is going to be one of your main light attributes. And we're also running 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Like I said, you will have some lights in your extra deck, which is going to be some of your targets for BLS. But Effect Veiler is going to be really nice and be easy to get to grave, to set up for BLS plays, etc. Because you're usually always have some type of dark. Ash Blossom is going to help you negate stuff. This deck is pretty much going to be going into a bunch of different Exceeds and Links. Exceeds and Links. Oh my gosh, I'm tired today. But you're going to be pretty much doing that. And it doesn't have a lot of negation power, stopping power, running over big monster type of power. So you're going to see certain tech options that I'm running to help with that issue. Effect Veiler being one, and Ash Blossom being one because they're good generic hand traps that help you out. If you want to run Ghost Ogre, you can run that because that's a level 3 light, and I have tried that out as a tech option because you could detach it, have a light engrave, and set up for a BLS, but that's up to you. 2 Allure of Darkness, we do have a good amount of dark attributes, but we don't have enough, I feel like, to vindicate a third, because a lot of them you're going to want to send to grave, you don't really want to banish. This is pretty much here in case you have a brick hand. You can banish something to set up maybe for 11-year play, or you can banish something to draw into cards you actually need. So that's just there as a nice little bit of a draw engine. Next we have 2 Dark Eruption. Dark Eruption is going to be staple in this deck as a 2 of, because this is going to help you recycle your Tour Guide, which is very important to keep in mind. Because say I go Tour Guide, right? I go Tour Guide, bring out my card, Exceed, detach Tour Guide. Okay, I'm going to use Dark Eruption now, add Tour Guide back to hand. All right, now next turn, what do I have? I have another Tour Guide play I can use for it. Remember how I said Tour Guide's going to be your heart and soul of this deck and makes it go round? This is one of those cards that helps you do that. So Dark Eruption is a great card, staple 2 of in this deck. Thank you to my friend who suggested this card ages ago to me, but staple 2 of in this deck, hands down. This is a tech option in this deck. You can take it out, keep it in. 2 XYZ Import. I'm really liking this card more and more as I've played around with it ever since I originally saw it, but as time's going on, it's kind of aged on me and grown on me. The nice thing about this deck is, and one of the that this card does for this deck is it helps push against big monsters, makes it easier to get over bigger monsters, because one of the issues this deck has is the inability to get over huge monsters, or big monsters above 25k plus. That's been a problem with this deck to some degree, mind you, but this helps you get around it. So you can go for an Exceed monster, detach, do your normal play, use XYZ Import on it, which is great. Then maybe I can go into Divine Arsenal AA Zeus or something else later on. You see how this is working. It's really good in this deck, even though it does go for links and exceeds, and it's not just a pure exceed based deck. But even still, it's a great card to have, and I like it in the deck. So staple 2 of, in my opinion. You can play around with it if you want to, or cut it for something else. 1 Pot of Avarice. Really good card because you want to recycle your cards in grave so you can keep using Tour Guides and all her friends. 1 Upstart Goblin. I want a little bit more draw power in this deck. 1 Call by the Grave. If Call by the Grave or a Nobleman ever came out, you're going to run it in this deck at maximum because you want to protect yourself against hand traps. Nobody likes getting a Tour Guide negated, I'm just saying. 1 Foolish Burial. This is kind of a Rhoda for your Scarm, for your Farfa, whatever you want to do with it, because it's going to be nice to help set things up in grave and get your engine going. 1 Rhoda, kind of like I said, another searcher for the deck for your Junk Forward and for your Kagemusha Knight guy. We also want 1 Monster Reborn as well. Monster Reborn, you're going to have a lot of things in grave, even though you will be recycling them, but you can use them either for Exceed fodder or Link fodder by bringing that dead stuff back from grave. So it's nice to have. Next up, we're going to run 3 Infinite Impermanents. I do not like monster effects, so more monster negation, guys. Why not? Like I said, you want a lot of that in this deck because this deck really doesn't have that negation power, and I wanted at least some control aspect in my deck. So that is the main deck, guys. I hope you guys are really intrigued by this deck and are liking it. If you do, please remember to give a thumbs up on this video because this is a deck that I pretty much built from scratch. There was nothing out there, and a couple buddies did help me out, though. For your Exceeds, we're going to run 1 IP Masquerena, staple card in this deck, I feel like. 1 Beat Cop. It's nice to have this as a 1 of in the deck. You could run it at multiples if you want to. 1 Cherubini Ebanon Angel of Burning Abyss, which is right here. 1 Cerberus. 1 Phoenix for back row base decks, as well as Unicorn. So that's pretty much your main Link monsters, but we're going to run some other ones. We're running 1 Blackluster Soldier of Chaos. You got to run this card in this deck because it's so easy to go for and such a broken card in this version of the deck. You got to run it. 1 Access Code Talker as well. I know you're probably looking at this deck and like, oh, it's a little bit expensive, and then you're looking at the extra deck and going, oh, it's very expensive. Yeah, I know. But yeah, this staple, this is nice. You can run Boiler's Savage if you want to, but that's up to you. 2 Dante, Traveler of the Burning Abyss. You got to run 2 Dante. the Phantom Knight Break Sword. I know I said I don't run a Phantom Knight engine, but Break Sword's a generic, a good level 3, so yeah. 1 Levineer, the Sea Dragon. This is a great card to have. On top of that, we're running 1 Downward Magician. Great card to have in this version of the deck. And 1 Divine Arsenal AA Zeus. Again, I know it's expensive, but you got to run it in this version of the deck. So, hope you guys all enjoyed that deck profile. I know I kind of went fast through that extra deck there, but overall, it's been working out pretty well for me. This is one of those fun decks, guys, that just came about because I was like, hey, I want to build a fun deck using Tour Guide and abusing it. And you're going to notice, yeah, it uses links, it uses exceeds, and it's a fun combination of the two in this deck. So, hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, give a thumbs up. And remember, guys, to like this video also if you love Tour Guide and you think she's an amazing card and awesome waifu for the Yu-Gi-Oh series. And until next time, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling to all you guys out there, and I'll see you guys next time. Good luck dueling to all of you guys.